Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. In this case, it is 1:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it must be time to go live on the awesome journey. To our surprise, it went live. In any event, today, we have two guests with us, Brandi Roberts and Mark Toscano, and we will get into their thoughts a little bit later. But I just wanted to introduce myself. I am Kelly Steinicke, and I'm your host, along with my cohort in care, Christy Howard. And what we do here, for those of you who are new for the first time, because this is our second show, so I'm sure there will be new ones here. Christy and I met on LinkedIn 15 years ago and have met in person probably 5 times. And I had decided to do a podcast at the end of the year called The Awesome Journey, and had reached out to Christy because I had prayed on it and her name kept coming up. And long and the short, we ended up at the beginning of the year both getting involved in LinkedIn Lives and thought, hey, all this technology that we do not do well with a podcast, we thought, why don't we just do a LinkedIn Live? And what we were struggling with personally, and know so many people that are having this issue, was 2020 obviously changed all of us in the job market. I personally was laid off, couldn't get hired. And it was a big struggle. And the job market has changed. There's so many more layoffs. And Christy and I talk about it all the time and thought, what can we do to help people? Here I want to do this awesome journey where we share stories of people who have, gone through trials to triumph or give back to the community after, living a trauma, and have just amazing stories. And we're thrilled about some of the guests we have coming up going forward. But we also wanted to focus on job seekers, recruiters, to help give everyone some information, guidance, maybe just support, because I think hearing other people's stories help us go, gosh, I'm not alone. Because a lot of people have come back to LinkedIn for the first time because they need to, and LinkedIn has changed. So this was our effort to help amplify people, highlight job seekers, highlight some recruiters, and get out information. And again, just share stories with everyone that will move them and just make this journey more awesome. We're all on it together, and why not make it awesome? So all of that being said, I will turn it over now to you, my cohort in care, Christy Howard.
And I was laughing because I realized that I hadn't turned it on live. I'm the technical person on the back end, and I'm just winging it every single time.
Yes.
That's
I
how I
should say
do
my first introduction was way better than that one.
it. Actually, it was. Anyway, my name's Christy Howard. I help. I help anybody that needs to be helped. I'm all about paying it forward. My about section tells you what I'm doing these days. It's about helping job seekers and getting confidence, coaching with other people to understand where they want to go and what they want to do. And as Kelly said, we met 15 years ago, and this is fun because our guest list, it is so diverse. It's just amazing. I'm very excited because everybody does some kind of business, and everybody needs to know somebody that needs to know you. So for our first guest, because it's job seekers and recruiters are the main focus these days because of the layoffs, and recruiters, trying to get job seekers in and trying to get jobs. I wanted to bring two people in, Brandi Roberts and Mark Toscano. Brandi and I worked together, and she taught me a lot. She did a leadership development class that I worked at, we worked at, and it just changed my life. Mark and I connected when I started doing what I do now, and he reached out to me, and we've had some great conversations. I just pick his brain about recruitment and all types of stuff. I mean, I have an issue with ageism, and I have an issue with the banter that we see. But there's a lot of recruiters out there that give so much information out there, and there's a lot of job seekers that just want to work. I mean, and don't understand the strategic part of looking for a job over praying and spraying. So I'm going to introduce Brandi, and she can give you a little of her resume, because we wanted a voice behind the profile, voice behind the picture, and then we'll have Mark introduce himself and share, and then these two are just going to have these conversations. And of course, because Kelly and I've been here before looking for jobs and everything. We're going to be a little bit of a devil's advocate, maybe throw in a few twists and turns. So go for it, Brandi. And thank you guys for being here for it.
Yes, thanks so
You
much.
got it. I'm so excited to be here. And thank you, Christy, for the very generous introduction there. Uh, yeah, so Christy and I met at a company that we both worked together. And I think Christy came on board maybe right before the pandemic or during the pandemic.
During the pandemic.
Right. My career path is a little varied. I started out as I have a degree in agricultural economics, so I started out working in nonprofits, and then decided I truly needed to feed my family, and needed to go into the private sector for a bit. I was proud of the nonprofit work that we did, but was ready for a change. Decided to go into nursing school and became an RN, received my BSN, and went directly into bedside care. And then from bedside care, I transitioned into, I guess you would say, corporate or client-based care. I worked for an airline in Tulsa and on their on-site clinic, and then was able to get into the case management side of nursing, which I loved. And when I got into that case management role, I was like, oh, this is it. This is where I'm going to retire. And I spent 14 years building a career at that company, which did allow me to migrate out of a direct hands-on nursing telephonic role into building training programs, creating efficiencies, finding new processes that we need, supporting new lines of business, and worked into a director of talent development role and led a team. This company was remote before remote was cool. So I have worked remotely pretty much for the past 15 years, and have a very varied background in being able to build productive, high functioning remote teams with people being across 4 different time zones. COVID, they said, hey, we need somebody to go in and we need somebody to go out to LA and spin up a new deliverable. Can you do that? Sure. Went out to LA, spent 6 months working in the industry, in the, like the entertainment industry, because they were deemed as part of the core businesses that needed to be back online. If people were going to be stuck at home, they needed to be able to watch TV and be entertained. Mm-hmm. So I was able to get all of that spun up and going, came back, went directly back into my role of developing teams, leadership management, management training, you name it, we did it. Thought I was going to retire with this company. I really did. When we started downsizing after COVID, had the weekly meetings with my boss. Hey, is my team safe? Is my team safe? Yep, not a problem, not a problem. Literally the week before I was part of the reduction in force, I had the conversation, hey, you know, it's starting to feel a little tight. Is my team safe? Absolutely. There's 100% value in what you're doing. We're not going to touch you. The following week, I get the phone call. So, yeah, that's my story. That was November 30th. And went through the shock and awe, went through a pray and spray session or season in my life just because I was panicked. But then with Christy's help, I just was able to sit back and be like, no, we've got to be more methodical. We've got to be more strategic. And what I'm finding is I'm only getting calls. I'm getting a ton of calls, but I'm only getting calls for bedside care. And I transitioned out of bedside care 20 years ago. So I'm not getting any calls from corporate America, which is where I want to continue my career.
And that's why we have Mark.
Yes.
So,
I guess that's my turn.
Yes, it is.
So I, sadly, this is my 20th year in recruiting. And
that's not sad.
Except for a very brief stint. it's all been in executive level recruiting. And there are some things that have held true for the last 20 years, and they hold true across industries. And one of those things is that everything comes and goes in cycles. And the unfortunate part of that is that right now we're in a cycle where an awful lot of you out there, and this applies across the board,
Mhm.
are in industries and in cycles where they're just treading water. They're not sure what's coming next, and they're not doing anything. It's not you as a candidate. It's just industries that are not looking for, sometimes they're not looking for people at all. Sometimes they're not looking for certain levels of people. They're not looking for entry level, or they're not looking for that middle management or even the more executive people. They're staying put. Look, that impacts me a lot because I make my living by plucking people and then putting them over here. That creates that opening that you need. So stop picking on recruiters. You need us, right?
Mm.
If you want to move up, you create those holes. That's part of what we do. And people are afraid to move right now. So it's hard for me to pluck this person out and move them over here because they don't want to be last in, first out when it's time for people to get cut. And that's true at surprisingly high levels. That's true at the levels who would even be saying, here are the people that we're going to have to cut.
Mm.
And because there's somebody above them, unless they're the chairman of the board. And that's a frightening thing. So having said all of that, there is a lot of hope. And there are things that you can do that will help you put yourself in a better position. And so, if you don't mind, I'd love to ask you a few questions about your resume and your LinkedIn profile because you're getting calls, you're getting just calls about the wrong things.
Correct.
So, if we look at your resume,
hmm
what are you highlighting as your top skills, and how are you highlighting those?
Right. I believe and actually Christy has been helping me with this, and she does a wonderful job in helping me stay focused on those key aspects. And what we're highlighting is process management, process improvement, um, problem solver, executive or even mid-level management type of roles. And we're really showcasing. I mean, if you read my resume, it doesn't scream nurse.
No.
It
It does not,
screams
and I've seen your resume.
the only time you're going to see RN or even BSN next to my name is next to my name. I've been doing non-bedside nursing things for so long that if I added that, it would show that I wouldn't add value to the bedside care anymore.
So I've got a question. So Mark, with her having the abbreviation,
Yeah.
what is it again?
Yes.
BSR.
Yeah. Right now it reads RN, BSN,
Yeah.
CCN.
Hey, I do your LinkedIn. I can't remember. Anyway, so is it? So I've heard both stories that some people say don't have those initials at the back of your name on your head. When you have your name up there, and then some people say yes, have it there because that gives you your affluent type of status. So on a LinkedIn profile, and where I stand on LinkedIn profile, that is your marketing tool. That is who they get. People get to know you. And then I'm going to have you explain about the recruiter's end,
Mhm.
what you guys see.
Yeah.
Where a resume says differently, you're going to have jobs. I have jobs all the way back down to my 20s. But for Brandi, having, wanting the process management, being a product, being a product manager. However, she has never really had that per se title, but she's done it. I mean, what she did in LA, that is all she did. So how do you bring that into play where a recruiter on the back end is going to
Mhm.
grab her in the healthcare industry or any other kind of industries?
Yeah, because I think this also even goes to Chrissy, just to give a little bit more of what came to mind when you were saying all that. I think this is where so many people struggle, is because your resume can only include so much information,
Yeah.
as well as your profile. And I mean, I've always been one of those people that I'm like, get me in front of the person that's hiring and I'll get the job. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
and this is our whole point of doing this partially too, is getting to know the people behind the profile or behind the resume, and how people are struggling just even to get in front of people, one. And two, I know a lot of people have commented to us previously, if they're going to apply for a job, say that's listed on LinkedIn, and they see like 1,200 people have applied, and they're like, oh, forget it. So I guess that was really a roundabout way of, yes, what are your recommendations of how people, can deal with that? Because I think that's a real problem of really being able to translate all of my skill set in a way that reads properly, or in a way to get a recruiter's attention, I guess.
So you guys have a lot of things out there right now, and I'll just kind of start picking them off. And I'll start with the one where I don't honestly care. And that's with whether or not you put those initials at the end of your name.
Mm.
I happen to own initials that I don't have at the end of my name because they don't do anything at all for my current career and haven't for the last 30 years. So why have them? So I don't. But that's me.
Can I answer the reason why we decided? I've kind of gone back and forth with Christy about this, and the reason why I felt it was important, and please tell me if this is wrong thinking, is I still love healthcare. And one of the reasons why I was able to exceed that ladder and climb that ladder with the company that I was in is because I was able to bring the medical knowledge
Mhm.
into our internal processing systems.
Yeah.
And I was able to meld both worlds. I was able to do corporate training and the clinical training. I was able to talk to them about why a nurse isn't thinking that way. You're asking them to do this, but the nurse isn't. That's number 20 on their list, not number 2. This is what we have to do about getting them to think that it's number 2.
And and I 100% agree that looking at what you want to do going forward, that background is huge and those initials become meaningful. But for the roles that you're targeting, the question you have to ask is, do those initials help me get that role that I'm targeting? And again, part of why I said, this is a personal thing. And if you want those on there, by all means, have them on there. But now to move on to something that Christy was talking about.
I'm going to quickly interject
recruiters-
here. Because that's what I do. My husband hates this. Kelsey, she wants to know, which is also a good, interesting thing as a recruiter. I have a butterfly at the end of my name. Kelly has a flower. Kelsey has lips. How do you feel as a recruiter? Again, I pivot all the time. You know that, Mark. How do you guys feel about these emojis?
Listen, I know there are recruiters that don't like them. I know there are recruiters that don't care. I personally don't care.
Okay.
I like a little bit of flavor in a profile. I want to see that you're a real person. I'm not easily offended by anything. I also understand that that's going to be different for different roles that I'm working on. If I'm working on finding a CFO, and there are butterflies and lips, I might look at that a little bit different. Not
But
gonna
if it has money and cash at the end of it,
no,
that's a different story.
then I'm right back on the train here. We're good to go.
Okay,
And
go back
and
to
so
what you were
part of
saying.
that-
I just saw that, and so I needed to share that.
That's a
No,
great
that's a
question.
great question. And part of that is the same thing with those initials. Because when I'm doing a search, I skip drop down menus. I hate those things, right? Because then the words that you have on your resume and on your profile have to match what LinkedIn thinks belong on the drop down menu. And they probably don't. If I have you in my database and I'm searching my database for resumes, the words on your resume have to match what were put in that database from the drop down menu. Well, they might have set those drop down menus up 10 years ago. We don't use any of those terms anymore. So I'm always going to manually enter my search terms.
Okay.
Just that's I know that again, recruiters are split on this. A lot of them do, a lot of them don't. You know, and there are things I will use drop downs for in terms of location. It's just easier to do that off a drop down menu than to do a Boolean string that looks for something within X number of miles of this zip code. But everybody does that differently. If you have those initials, that's why you're getting all of those calls for people who need bedside care. I need a nurse. Ooh, she pops up when I do RN. She pops up when I do BSN. So that's why you're getting those calls. They're doing a quick search. They're getting a list of people and they're calling because every institution on the planet needs nurses right now. So they're calling you and you're probably getting 3 and 4 calls from the same recruiters even. They're just not paying attention. They're calling over and over again because they've got clients, they've got hiring managers who are banging on the door saying, I need people.
So what we could do is take those initials, throw it into the about section,
Yeah.
but make into the about section saying that she loves healthcare, but this is where she wants to, pivot to.
Yeah.
That might be
Hopefully
a great way.
When the recruiters grab her name, hopefully they actually read the about. They actually read her LinkedIn, and that's a hopefully that they read everything.
Well, because now here's the next thing that's going to happen. So I put in my search terms and I need somebody who has 5 different skill sets. So I put those in. Now I'm going to get a list on LinkedIn. I'm going to get a list out of my database if there's people in there that fit that. And the next thing I'm going to do is just start at the top and start looking, where do I see those skills? I don't want to see them in a list that just says skills.
You're right. I agree.
Right? I want to see them at this role for this employer, this role for this employer. And by the way, you mentioned earlier, you were in the same place for 14 years. So it makes it different, but break out those roles. You can still show that career progression. And I started here, then I did this, then I did this, then I did this. And under each new part of your career, treat that like a brand new job and put in those skills so that when I'm looking, now I'm scanning through this and I see that you've done this and you've done this and you've done this, and it's all in healthcare. It's the same company and all of the roles that you've done have been in that healthcare setting. So that's what I'm looking for. One of those search terms that I've put in, right? I'm looking for those 5 skills, but then I'm also looking for a geographic location. I'm looking for different types of industry backgrounds. I need people with specific skill sets that have been applied and learned in a specific way. This is the level where it starts to get picky because now we're talking about executives, right? So they want to bring you in to fill a specific role. This is not a learn on the job role.
Right.
Otherwise they would just promote somebody. This is, I need somebody who's already done this and can repeat that success. So those things on your profile and then again in your resume are going to help when a recruiter is looking at that. So I'm doing my search, I'm on LinkedIn, I have this and you pop up and you've got those things. I'm going to reach out to you. And that's, now one thing that you can do to help make sure that you're popping up when I do that search is look at the jobs that you want to have. Go out and find them. They're somewhere. Somebody is doing that job somewhere. So find their LinkedIn profile and look at the skills that they have and the background that they have. Look at the job postings. Somebody in Wichita looking for somebody who does what you do, or somebody doesn't matter where they are, and it doesn't matter whether you want to go there and do it. You're looking for the information, because those are the skills that the client is saying, this is what I need, this is what I want.
Sound
And
familiar,
so
Brandi?
that's what
For
I'm
sure.
And
For sure.
I know Christy has had this conversation because she and I have talked about this, but this is one of those things that way too many people don't do. So, and I know if you're sitting there trying to figure out, okay, how do I make sure I get found? There are terms that we're looking for. There are phrases that we're looking for. We're putting them in there. There are skills, things that you know how to do. Make sure those are on your profile. Make sure those are on your resume. So when I'm doing that search, you pop up. And then at that point, do I, when I see that, oh, okay, she's done this in a medical setting, and she's got the BSN. She's a registered nurse. That carries a little extra weight. That's a little extra oomph. That's a good thing to have. Do I care if you have a butterfly or a rainbow or, no, I do not, right? Because you fit the thing that I'm looking for. And I'm pretty sure you haven't figured out how to put a butterfly on your resume, because, even Christy is going to be challenged with that one.
Oh, I bet I can do that.
Yes, I'm curious too, Mark, because you bring up so many good things that I know is helpful for so many, and especially somebody like Brandi and Christy and I have had a lot of conversation about this. There's a lot of people who are in the job market that haven't been in the job market in a very long time, and it looks a whole lot different. And, one of the things that I know scares a lot of people, and I've also had a lot of conversation about this, is, ATS, running resumes through ATS. You get kicked out before you even get put anywhere. And, I know there's some free places that you can go to run it through and get a test, but and then I've heard some recruiters say, oh, well, they don't really use that anymore. They don't do it. Don't worry about it. And others are like, oh, absolutely. Be sure you do it. And, and then a secondary thought on this, and this is just one of my personal pet peeves, is when I get reached out to by a recruiter, and so a lot of times it's similar to Brandi in the sense of this job does not apply to me on any level. I don't know how you got me matched. And there's a lot of scams out there, and I'm sure a lot of people know this. Man, if they're asking you for your phone number and your social security, obviously that is a big, humongous red flag to not respond. But in any event, getting recruiters reach out, and then maybe I do send, here's the link to my LinkedIn profile, here's my resume, whatever it is, and I start moving down the path. Then I hear nothing. It irritates me to no end, just because it's like, you reached out to me, I responded, I followed up, and then you're not doing, and I know that's not across the board by any means, because I've worked with some amazing recruiters. I just know it's something that people really struggle with. And when you've been out of the job market a long time, and this is the other part of what Christy and I talk about a lot, is the mental health, this issue that is coming from this too. So many people being like, man, I can't get a job. I can't even get a job at a way lower level, you're overqualified. We don't want you coming because you're going to leave after you find something else. And it's like, man, I just need to pay my rent. So that was a bit in there, but I just kind of wanted to know what your thoughts or advice is on that, because I know that's a big struggle for a lot of people who have not been in the job market and really knowing, what do I do?
So hoping I don't miss anything and kind of working.
Yeah, I can say a lot in a very short
No,
period of time. I'm sorry.
You're good. When, let's start with recruiters who don't get back to you. That bothers a lot of us too. I'm not going to lie to you. In some cases, it's that people are overwhelmed, and I'm not trying to cut them any slack. That's something that them and their company need to work on. And it can happen to all of us, right? We're knee deep in a search. We got clients banging on the door. I've got 3 things going on, and they all want to be the number one priority. And that 4th search that I'm working on, I still need to get back to some candidates.
Hmm.
And so part of how you learn that, and part of, listen, we talk about, ageism a little bit, but with the gray hair comes learning how to handle some of those things and do some of those things. And so I will say that no matter what, don't be afraid to reach out to a recruiter. If you were really interested in that role, don't be afraid to reach out to a recruiter and say, hey, I know sometimes, things get hectic. Did you have an update for me?
Yeah.
And most of us, and I mean, even the ones who are not good, will be like, oh, God, I'm sorry. I owed you a response. Here's what it is. I'm really sorry. It's, not great news. You probably already knew that.
Right. But it's good
And,
enough news. Now I can move on, right?
but that's the other thing. And that's, especially when you look at recruiting for different kinds of roles where you might have a huge number of applicants, and trying to get back to everybody is impossible,
Yeah.
right? I may have, I had not too long ago, I had a regional director role I was working on. I had 30 interviews over a 10-day period and narrowed it down to 5 people that I sent to my client. I called the other 25 back. But this was a very specific role with a very targeted list of people that I reached out to. If this were a couple of levels lower, you could have added a 0 to all of those numbers, except how many I sent my client. And that's a lot of people to get back to. That's a lot of things to follow up on.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to ask, hey, is there any feedback? We'll share it, I promise, right? Most of us have no intention of ever ghosting anybody, and we work really hard not to.
Right. And I think that's the big takeaway, right? Is for anyone to be like, don't be afraid to reach out and follow up, because I think some people just end up starting to get into their own heads, as Chrissy will tell you to get out of,
Yeah.
and start taking it personal, and it's just that ruffle spiral. And, I know this went by so very fast. We have a lot of comments, and I do want to say I haven't read a lot of them. We'll be sure that people get in there and respond. Be sure to reach out to Brandi and Mark directly if you have any questions for them, please. And of course, reach out to Christy and I. And just to wrap up, because we are going to be a little bit over here, I just want to give kind of final thoughts to both Brandi and Mark and Christy, and we'll wrap. And like I said, we'll be sure to follow up on all the comments and get answers to you guys.
I just want to say that the one thing that I have found that has been so crucial in this time of transition, that's what I'm calling it. It's just a time of change, right? Is making sure that you have people in your corner that are safe people for you, that you can get in there with them and really have those conversations about, what do you think is next? Where should I go next? What should I be looking at? What's working? What's not working? And then really being open. I mean, don't ask the questions if you're not being open for that advice. I'm really intentional. I try to be very intentional when I ask Christy specific things. And when she gives me an answer, I do my best to really sit and think on it and not automatically reject it, and bite on it a little bit, chew on it a little bit, and see why I am maybe struggling to do what she's asking me to do.
I make you think.
Yes, you do.
I try to get people outside of the box.
That is true.
Because we it's sort of like when somebody writes, when you do your own resume, you're writing like you're speaking. And so, going to getting the skills that you really want to do. And as Mark mentioned, go look at jobs, go look at what somebody does and say, that's what I want to do. and you build, okay, well, can you do it? I mean, I've had clients going, I want this job. And I come back and go, you don't have that skill. You're not going to be able to do this job. Dream on and move on, you know?
You need
So,
people that you trust that can tell you that and will tell you that.
yeah.
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 I'd like to throw in one thing too. Kelly touched on two things. One, I know there's a lot of people out there who talk about the ATS, and the ATS, even the ones with the biggest gizmos and toys, don't rule out resumes. They're not set up that way. They're a filing cabinet that we can search. So the thing with an ATS, anybody who says, oh, I'm going to sell you one that'll get you past, yeah, not so much. That doesn't happen. But what you do want to have is make sure that those keywords, those things that you know how to do, are in that resume. Because when I go to sit down at my database, right? Our company's been in business a long time. We've got a lot of people in our database. It's the second place I look. I always start with my own connections. Then the next place I look is in our database. Who do I have handy that I've already got a resume that has these skills on it, and I'm manually typing in, I need somebody who knows this software. I need somebody who knows this. I need somebody who knows. And then it spits out a list.
Well, you also have those knockout questions.
Well, knockout questions are
Like,
a different
you
thing.
have
And
to have
I'll,
a bachelor. So as an EA,
Yeah.
when I was an EA, you have a bachelor's degree. Like my special education bachelor's degree would have helped me as a C-suite executive, but that's another story.
right.
I used to, I would put my resume in going, well, I do everything else, but I don't have a bachelor's.
Right.
I get that automatically knocked out. I didn't understand that until it was told to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, so now I don't apply, and it's their loss that they're asking for somebody with a BA.
Well, and part of why we ask those knockout questions, by the way, is that it puts you in a separate pile. It doesn't automatically reject you unless I tell it,
Right.
send a rejection. So I'm still seeing the resume. Even if it sends a rejection, I'm still seeing the resume. There might be something in there that makes me not care about the knockout. I know there are an awful lot of roles, even leadership roles, clinical leadership roles in healthcare where you need to have that BSN. So the knockout question may be, are you an RN? If you check no, you ain't getting the job. So in that case, it may be set up to automatically send you a letter that says, we're not doing that. It's not the ATS, it's you answering the questions. So there's a huge difference there. But going back to that whole theme, when you go on LinkedIn and you look at, 1,200 people have applied to this job.
Right.
That's nowhere near true, ever. That measures impressions, just like it does when you post something. If somebody looked at the full job description, it counts it. Okay. So start with that. It says 1,200. That means 1,200 people at least scrolled down on the job description, and it registered with LinkedIn.
Mic drop moment. For real.
So, it's not 1,200. Trust me. Here's the other thing.
Interesting.
An awful lot of the people who are applying to these things aren't necessarily qualified.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and this is not a show about shooting your shot or not, but this is an awful lot of people they're not qualified for that role. So if you see a job and you're qualified for it, and you can do this job, and your resume backs up that you can do this job, apply. Please apply, because we're sitting there reading through dozens. It says 1,200. It's probably a couple dozen that just no. And then when one pops up that's like, ooh, yes. Oh my God, we get so excited. We love those. So if you're that person, please don't look at, 1,200 people applied and move on.
I guarantee you that changed so many
Yes.
people's opinions. I mean, mine for sure. And I've had many a conversation with people that say they don't apply when they see those hundreds and hundreds or over 1,000 people applying. And then again, that plays on the whole psyche.
And I
So
have told, I believe the two of you, don't listen to it. It's the clicks. Apply. I have told,
well,
I've,
I still apply if I think I'm qualified. I mean, but
but
I do know that it is like such an off put. So I know that that's a game changer for a lot of people.
It's just nice not to now tell my brain, don't pay attention to that. Just pay
Yes,
attention to the
ignore it.
posting and whether or not you're a good fit.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
really.
As Chrissy would say, get out of your head because you're talking yourself out of something without even trying. Oh, that was awesome. So, Christy, what are your final thoughts, my dear?
well, I'm going to put the latest message. Gina was my first person to reach out to me when I decided to leave my very high paying job to do what I do. And she was an EA. And she's like, I'm done doing this. I'm going to be an HR person. I'm like, "Yeah, okay, you have some experience." She wanted to move from the East Coast to Arizona. She is now moving, and she got the job that she wanted because
That's awesome.
she would call me up, and I'm like, get out of your head, believe in yourself. You've got the passion. You know what you want to do. Just have that. And she got it.
Oh,
So,
great.
there's a lot of people that there's so many people out there that are giving information, and I don't consider myself an expert or an influencer. I'm just an old lady that's been around the job, around the world, around the country, working in a lot of different industries. And I look at the job seeker and the frustration, what they're going through. However, I research, I connect, I have conversations with these recruiters to say, hey, how has it changed? How can we help people? Because the recruiters are here to help people as well. They're not the enemy. They're overwhelmed as well. But yes, they do, they have to go find the jobs. That's their job. They got to go find the company who wants to hire them. Then they have to go and find the applicants. And it's where, I'm just so stoked because it's our first guest, that I feel that it went well. We are also now, Kelly, it's going to be an hour because we were only going to be a half an hour, but you get talking. It's like we're sitting in people's living rooms.
Yes, and it's such great information that and then it just starts to open the can of worms, if you will. And it's like, oh, wait, what? You said what? And this is such great info. And it's so important because I feel, and this is part of the reason we wanted to do this, is to share information. How can we amplify what we learn and know, and who can we get to help us learn more, and also help the audience learn more, because everybody's going through something, regardless if it's in the business world. But I feel like LinkedIn Live has had and LinkedIn as the platform with LinkedIn Live has kind of rejuvenated it in a way, and it isn't being leveraged, I believe, in the way that it could be, because it is a powerful tool. And I think it's creating this sense of community with people when they arrive or they participate and they listen in and go, oh my God, I'm having that problem too. Or I didn't know that. I had no idea that was impressions and not actual applicants. So many great takeaways. So it's helping so many people. And of course, this can be as a replay. And I definitely love this format. When Christy and I were talking about putting this together, about highlighting, somebody who is looking for a job, let them have a voice to it. We want to figure out a way, how can we snip this out and give it to them to use in another way. So we have thoughts of how to even grow it. And then also bringing people, of course, like Mark, who's a recruiter, and having the conversation, because it doesn't matter if people aren't in healthcare, but you guys both gave information that helps everyone. Doesn't matter what industry they're in. And I think, Mark, you bring such a good point, and I want to be sure to highlight this too. Recruiters get bad names because of bad recruiters. And it's a bummer because, like I said before, I've worked with some amazing recruiters, Staffing Strong here local in Arizona. Love them. Have never been let down, disappointed, always get a rock star and superstar treatment. And the same with you, Mark. It's just a bummer. And people just need to, I'd say, reach out. And this is why connecting and having conversation with people, find out who they know. One of my personal tips is, if I see a job poster and I know them, or I know somebody at the organization, I've tended to reach out to the person I know at the organization and say, hey, I see that you guys are hiring XYZ position. I'm actually looking for work, or I know somebody that's looking for work. Can I set them up with you, or can I connect them to someone else to not go through this process? And on an occasion, you do get a shortcut. So, I mean, just the worst thing that people can do is say no. I just feel like we need to get creative. And that's what we're doing. And, so I'm so grateful for you guys being here.
Absolutely.
I mean, this has been a great conversation. Everyone, again, please connect with Brandi and Mark, and of course, Christy and I, if you're not already. And feel free to reach out, ask questions, continue the conversation. That's what we're here for. Did you want to say anything and wrap up, Christy, or shall I wrap?
Well, yeah, and if you would like to be on a show, as we said, we've got a very diverse. We've got a best-selling book, a writer. He has a nonprofit. We have a retired FBI agent coming in. We have small businesses. We have just so many different types of people. We're going to have so many different kinds of conversations that will help everybody to understand that we are all on this awesome journey, and we might as well just do it together. We've all gone through the good, the bad, and truly.
Yes.
But we're here, and we're all about, we're here to help, and we're here to help people with their, the mental health is huge on us.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
let's just help everybody. Kindness is free. It's not that hard to do. So, Mark, any last comments? Brandi? And thank you guys for doing this.
I'm just so proud of you guys, and I just can't wait to see what this is going to look like in 6 months. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I'm very honored to have been one of your first guests, and I hope that the last message I would leave with people is, don't get discouraged because the thing that you're looking for isn't available right now. Doesn't mean it's not out there. It's just not available right now. And this can suck. We get it. I mean, all of us, we weren't born recruiters. We ended up having to apply for a job and interview. You guys are going through, whether you're in an agency like I am, or whether you're doing it in-house, and they would have an entirely different perspective. So, you might want to bring on one of those and let them share that. But don't give up. It sucks, but to paraphrase Winston Churchill, if you stop when you're going through shit, then you're just stuck in it. Keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. And on that note, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next Tuesday at 1:11.
Yes, p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll see you then.